Harness Players podcast here on the In the Money Media Network, back with another episode, starting with a little bit of a different segment. Of course, I encourage you, if you're listening on the audio side, to stay tuned. Later in the show, we talk about the Pick 4 carryover over at Century Downs for Wednesday night, August the 20th. But first things first, on this video, and of course, you can also find that Century video separately on the In the Money Media YouTube channel. If you're subscribed, of course, you could not be subscribed, but what's the point of not being subscribed? Then you're going to miss out on all the other great harness racing and horse racing content to come from the In the Money Media Network. So be sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel. Also, because if we hit a certain number, PTF will finally set me free. I don't know what that means, but it sounds quite appealing. First things first, though, on this episode of the Harness Players podcast, not only are we joined by usual co-host Mikey P, but we also have Mr. Adam Bowden of Diamond Creek Farm joining us. Made a little bit of news early in the week here, Adam. Of course, you bought Sabonis before the start of this season after a stellar 3-year-old campaign in the Midwest. First things first, won the Dan Patch at Harrah's Hoosier Park. Did so in a way that I don't know if maybe you were kind of tugging at the collar, sweating a little bit, having to go first up there with Desperate Man coming late. How do you feel about Sabonis after that win?
No, I think we were real happy. He's had tough trips this year, and especially after the first start or two, we were a little hesitant about whether the buy was the right thing, but Brett and Dexter kind of turned the horse around, made some equipment changes, and the race at Hoosier was icing on the cake.
And I thought it was interesting to even see inside of the news that Sabonis would have to supplement to anything. And I even had to double check some of the bigger engagements later in the season. You guys, of course, did get him paid into the Breeders' Crown for the end of the year. But I'm just wondering then, for you to have to put up the 40,000 Canadian to put him into the Canadian Pacing Derby, when you first got this horse, were you thinking that this is maybe just a stop that you'll hop over depending on how the season goes? Or what was the deciding factor for you to send him into this race?
No, I think he had done enough. I mean, if I backtrack a little bit, we bought him. We were there in Brett Pelling's barn all spring watching our horses train, and he was there. He'd already been staked by the previous owner, so we had nothing to do with the staking. He just kind of came along with it. And I think just end of last week, we were kind of looking around saying, where are we going to race? And this spot kind of turned up. He had some 5/8 mile track racing coming up. I don't love watching 5/8 mile track racing, and he's a big horse. And we thought, why not? He had done enough. He's paid us back what we paid for him already. And, we're trying to make a stallion out of him now. And this was the grade 1 race that he didn't have on his dance card. And so we thought we'll pony up the money.
And is there an additional appeal given the Breeders' Crown is at Woodbine Mohawk Park this year? Are you a kind of guy who believes that having experience over the track pays off later in the bigger dance?
I mean, I don't think it hurts. A horse like him, he's been raced enough that I don't think it matters to him. But I certainly do think the big tracks, the 7/8s and the mile tracks, are good for him. He grew up and did all of his damage at Hoosier on a 7/8, and so I think he'll fit Mohawk fine.
And just then the planning too. Oh, you have a question? What were you gonna say, Mike?
Well, no, I just didn't know, Adam. I know the box closed this morning at 10:30. Did they give you an idea you're going to have eliminations? To how many answered? Do you have any idea what's going on up there yet?
No, I've kind of asked around. We haven't heard yet. I kind of penciled in 14 in my head that I thought would enter. So we'll see what happens.
And then, of course, taking this race, what does that mean for his card going into the Breeders' Crown? Of course, Alaraj, I have to imagine, is something on the road because that's in early October. I forget when the Dayton Derbies and stuff are. I think that's after Breeders' Crown. What does the campaign look like for Sabonis, obviously, with the Breeders' Crown as a target?
Yeah, I think yeah, obviously this race is the one to circle now. He has the Ewart, which would be next at Scioto. We're likely to skip that because it's a week after the Pacing Derby. But the next big one for him is the Hoosier Park Pacing Derby there in mid-September. You know, he wins the Dan Patch. He's an Indiana horse. It's logical for him to end up there. And then the Dayton Pacing Derby comes up after that. That's probably a penciled in, not penned in yet. But then the Alleridge, then the Breeders' Crown, and then hopefully the TVG.
Any worry going like week to week, or is he a type of horse that you are not concerned can take beating mile after mile? Is he just kind of gutsy that way?
Yeah, I mean, he raced 18 times as a 3-year-old. He would not pass the vet, and we kind of knew that when we bought him. We had him X-rayed anyway. He's got a few issues that have to be navigated, but he's easy on himself, and Brett's found a system that works where you can train him enough to keep him sharp and kind of give him the downtime he needs.
Last most important question, because you glided by this with a simple statement. You're trying to make a stallion out of him. And so, of course, you guys picking up the horse, we know where his road ends, but I think the bigger question is how soon do you see that coming? Are you kind of just looking to get through this season, or are you guys already committed to trying to make the 5-year-old campaign off of the racetrack?
No, I mean, Brett owns a third of the horse with us, so he'll have a say, obviously, in what happens. Probably what he does the rest of the way determines that. I mean, if he runs the table and dominates some of these big grade ones the rest of the way, then, you know, he might deserve a chance to stand next year, but, you know, who knows? I mean, we raced Allywag at 4 and 5 and, you know, had a great time doing it. So there's a possibility we do the same with him.
Of course, Allywag, a different circumstance. Even when I remember him as a 3-year-old, he had so much going on, and eventually had to cut the temperament, so to speak. And, you know,
yeah, he was an a-hole.
he would have been A-hole Wag Hanover if they would have allowed it. But no, that's all great. And on top of that, it's great that not only are you guys breeding horses, but you want to keep them on the racetrack if that's what they're showing that they want to do. Because for at least as long as I was coming up in the business, it just became custom. A really good 3-year-old throws in the towel. Of course, you know, Confederate's a different story. You race them at 4. It's like, what else are you going to do, honestly? But it's just refreshing to see someone who clearly has incentive to take them off the racetrack, wanting to also see them compete, and also to compete yourself in some of the biggest dances.
Yeah, I mean, as a fan of the sport, it's fun to watch these horses race. The money's, you know, at the end of the day, everybody can chide me for doing it, but, you know, money plays a huge role in it. I mean, we've made massive investments in the sport, and sometimes you got to take some out to keep going and keep doing what we're doing. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's a business.
Mike, any final questions?
Yeah, just Adam, it's a little surprising. I mean, sometimes these 4-year-olds can take time, especially going into these older ranks. And the fact that he's kind of ascended, and some of the older horses have been very inconsistent. You know, like a Buckabet really hasn't been himself this year. And, you know, By the Missile's been hit and miss. So it's for him to keep improving, and some of these older ones maybe not producing at their top levels. I mean, it's almost been the perfect storm for him.
No, it has. Actually, one of our fillies just won a race out here at the Red Mile, so that's fun. I'm going to have to go to the winner's circle here. No.
Live from the winner's circle.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's fun, and, you know, all of these ones are fun. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't know. It's just we do what we do, and we try to have as much fun as we can. And he's a horse that, you know, it's been a journey so far. It was down in the dumps, and then now he's at the top of the game. You know, even a horse like Captain Albano, you know, good 3-year-old, and has come back quite good at 4. So, you know, I think this 4-year-old group's quite good.
Adam Bowden, a guy who you could call on a Tuesday afternoon, and somehow he will have to go find his way to the winner's circle out there at the Red Mile. Adam, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to talk to us about this. And, of course, best of luck either in the elims and or final of the Canadian Pacing Derby with Sabonis.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye.